Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to today a stream about organic jewelry designs. As usual, my name is Nacho Riesco and I'm going to show you today what I'm doing sculpting this brooch. So, welcome everybody. Let me know everything is working fine. Mostly for the music. The music is too loud on my side. Maybe I have to adjust it a little bit. And hey Flexter, how are you? Good vibes as usual. Hey Leonard, how you doing? Glad to be here, that you are here. And Leonard, music is good. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So, okay, let me check if everything is working well here. I'm checking all of my social media. I'm sharing the link on my Facebook and so on. Everything, I love to hear that. So it sounds all perfect. Great. Welcome, Charlie. Welcome, Marco. And today I'm going to follow working on this design. I was making some progress, mainly on the head, as you can see. The head is already done. You can see how to sculpt the head on my YouTube channel. I'm gonna paste my YouTube channel link on the comments. Just if you want to step by and visit my channel and to see how I sculpted the head. You have a video. It's going to be very easy to find, so I'm gonna share my thing. This must be here. Where could I find the link or share it with you? Hold on a minute. Okay, here it is. Copy and paste. So here you will have, no, not this one, this one. I have to see my channel. So you are going to be able to see the progress, how I made the head on this video. So I started sculpting the head. So here you can see the full process for the head sculpting. So you go to my channel, you're going to be able to see, if you are interested, how I made it. So let's close this. So I have been making some progress this morning, mainly organizing the backside. So it's mostly, of course, it's not 100% ready, but it's ready. I'm gonna open the previous file. You can see the difference when it was less organized than this one. This one should be almost ready for printing. Of course, I still need to add a lot of details based from the reference, but you can see at the back is mostly flat. I'm going to need to hollow some parts a little bit, so to make this solid, thick wire here that goes almost surrounded the whole design. I think it should be hollow out a little bit to try to save a little bit of weight. The back of the wing, I need to weld the feathers with the back part and try to make it thinner as well. So for today, maybe I'm gonna make some progress mainly on the details for the feathers on the neck, the feathers on this wing. So, but just let me know if you have any question or comments or suggestions, or you are looking for any other information. So I will be happy to share with you all that I know. As I want to try to help you as much as I can. I'm gonna try to pay as more attention as possible on the chats. So I will be glad to help you in case you need about something that I'm doing or something that you would like to learn about ZBrush, any other technique, or if you have any other question related for jewelry designs. Okay, whatever you want. So one of the things that I like the most is being here, talking with you, chatting with you, and sharing information and knowledge. Okay, so looks like everything is working fine. So let's go. Another thing that I'm gonna set up first, I think I'm going to create the stone setting. This for the stone setting. I'm gonna create this. This looks like, I like the way it is made on the original design. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prongs. It's something like a crown stone setting. So I'm gonna try to make something similar or something useful, just to create things different, because the detailing is going to be almost repeating the same. Maybe I can share with you the way I sculpt the feathers. Is going to be interesting, I think, or the feathers here, or the existing feather that I already have here done. But I'm gonna start working on the stone setting. So I'm gonna fix this a little bit first, because I can see it's not well adjusted. So I'm gonna try to hide this behind the other feather. So okay, like this. Hey, Miami, welcome. My camera is good. Let's see, I'm in the center. Okay, so let's see first what is the size of the stone that I currently having on the design. It is going to, you know, the way to take measurements with ZBrush is using the scale master, clicking here. So I'm using a 3.5 millimeter stone. Maybe it could be easy to find, but maybe the client is giving to me the exact size. But in this case, that is a free design. I'm not restricted, but by a specific stone size. Maybe we can say that 3.5 millimeter, it's going to be a good size for that stone. Not too small and not too big. I think so. Okay, so the way I'm gonna correct this, I'm gonna hide the rest. So this is very useful, but this is one of the things that I use very often. You can see this little arrows that you can turn on and off here. I'm gonna turn on one here on the first subtool till here. That this is going to be another group of subtools. That means that the arrows meaning is for make the booleans, to make boolean groups. So, but they are very useful, because if I turn off the eye, I will be able to turn on or off all of the other subtool till the next arrow. So in this case, it's going to be very useful to hide everything, because I'm going to work only on the stone. So let's hide this, and then I'm going to send. This is going to be the base for the stone. Let me check the measurements. Now we are having a piece of from left to right. I am using a piece of 1.9 millimeter. Maybe it's going to be a little bit small, because you can see the cullet. The back side of the stone is very close to the border. Maybe instead of 2 millimeters, maybe I'm gonna put it 3.5. You can see it's 2 millimeter thick. I don't want to change all of the other subtool. I need to turn this off. Keep the proportions. No, because I don't want to change this size. So let's turn this off, and I'm going to make it 3.5. 3.5. Let's make it thicker. Now I'm working with a piece of 3.5 millimeters. As a starting point, I'm just making a block, a piece of material to work with. So it doesn't mean that this is going to be the final size. Let's see how it works. So let's make it bigger. In this case, it's going to be necessary. What is my gizmo here? Let's send to the center of the piece. One thing that I'm going to do is, because it is already on the original position, you can see here it's still there. But I already have this button here on my custom interface. You will find it here on the transform menu. You will find it here as pivot. S pivot, it's a button that I use very often. It's a way that you can send any subtool to the center of the world, to the coordinates 0, 0, 0 from the X, Y, and Z axis. So this is going to be very useful now because I'm going to use a radial symmetry for creating the 6 prongs. So it's going to be necessary to keep the piece in the center of on the 3D space. So if I click this button, I think you can see I'm going to turn the rest. You can see now the base is in the center, but at any time if I will need to send it back, the piece to the original location, just clicking here, it will come back to its original position. So you will find the 2 buttons here on the transfer menu. You can see the S pivot and the clear pivot buttons. You will find it here. So send it to the center. I'm gonna do the same with the stone. Send it to the center. This is the set. Yeah, there you go. So I'm going to hide the rest. Now I'm going to move this back. Oh, if you have any questions, so I said before, just let me know. Questions, comments, critics, whatever you want. Hey Marco, how you doing? You are new on ZBrush, so how you treat the size the piece? Should we import a file with the real size from another software? No, it is not necessary. You can set all the measurements inside of ZBrush. Of course, this could be a way to set the measurements if you already have a piece already set it on an external application, so you know that you are importing a cube or a cylinder of 2mm or whatever. What I did is, here I have, you can see here, I'm gonna like there. Here I have this. Let me see, is this one? Yeah, it's this one. This is it's like a template that I made at the beginning of the process, so that it is, if I go to the scale master, it is 30 by 34 by 7.76 millimeter. That means that it has 30 millimeters on the x-axis from this view, from left to right. That means that the brush that I'm sculpting, that I'm making, is 30 millimeter wide from left to right. So if you can start making anything, for example, if you can set up the stone, the size of the stone, just changing the units on the scale master, you're going to be able to set up the right measurements inside of ZBrush. And I'm gonna turn this off. At any time that you need to, if I want to make, let's see, I'm gonna make a real example. So let's make it wider. I'm gonna make this big. I'm gonna put it here. Let's make it bigger, like this. If you want to know how thick is what is the distance between this point and this point, to know how thick the prongs are going to be, this prong. So here we are going to make a prong here. So we're going to have another prong here till 6 prongs, right? So, but we need to know that we are having the necessary amount of material of a mesh. That means that we are working with, for example, 0.8 millimeter. That's just an example. The way to do this is just going to the move. So by default, ZBrush will give you the gizmo, but if you turn off the gizmo with this button here, or using the Y on the keyboard, you're gonna have a ruler. So you're gonna be able to take distances from point to point. So if I zoom in, if I make this, the distance between this point and this point is 0.378 millimeters. So we are reaching almost 0.4 millimeters. So we know that the cylinder is still too small. So because it is not possible to create a prong of 0.4 millimeter. So if I want to make it bigger, so let's make it bigger. Let's push it back. And now let's take the measurements again. Remember the Y to take the ruler. So now we are having a piece of 0.6 millimeter. As a starting point, it's going to be okay. 0.6 millimeter, I think it's a good measurement to start working with. So with the scale master or with the transpose line, you're going to be able to set up measurements, to create measurements, to make things bigger, thicker, smaller, whatever you want. So it's not going to be necessary to import anything from an external application. I only work with ZBrush. I don't use any other CAD or software. Dexter is something like the stager. Yeah, it's something like the stager, but much more older. The stager works almost the same, but I came from years ago. I'm more familiar to work with the S pivot and clear pivot buttons instead of the stager. It's newer than this, but with the stager you can do more things than this. But I just a personal preference. I'm more familiar to work with S and clear pivot point. Leonard, why? Once again, I wasn't aware of S pivot you have. Yeah, it's the same happened to me when I found it. That they are very, very useful button. That's the reason why I already have them here visible on my custom interface, but because I use them a lot. Can I ask what's your EQ? What do you mean with the EQ? I'm sorry, but I don't understand that. Sonu City. Oh, that's nice, thanks. Okay. Okay, so now I'm working with this, so I'm gonna create now, I'm gonna insert that cylinder now. Let's create, let's grab this, insert brush, insert primitives. I'm gonna create an insert. I'm gonna split mask points. I'm gonna put it here. Let's make it bigger. Let's rotate it 80 degrees. You know that you hold the shift key when you are rotating and you're using the gizmo, you're gonna be able to rotate things with increments of 5. So you're gonna have more control. Let's extrude it like this, because what I'm going to do is I'm gonna start creating booleans. Okay, let's see. I don't need this piece is this one, right? So this should be here. Let's remove the arrow and it should work as a negative. So this is one. I'm gonna start making booleans to start creating the prongs. So let's create. I'm gonna select another cylinder. I think it's gonna be a good idea to start making a folder to all of this. Okay, so let's create a new folder. New folder. So this is going to be the stone. The name is, I can type in the stone setting, and let's put everything inside. This is another way to create Boolean groups. So let's create. This is the cylinder itself. I'm gonna duplicate it. I'm gonna turn on the transparency. Let's make it smaller. Let's make it bigger like this, because this is going to be another. So I'm gonna start creating this. Okay, let's grab this. Let's put it closer. This. Let's create more something like this. So we are gonna start creating this kind of crown, which will hold the stone. Intelligent. I don't know. Yeah, intelligent quasi. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know. I never measure it. I think it's not going to be too high, I guess. I think, I don't know. I'm not interested about it. So so I already have it here, so it's time to start playing with more things. So let's grab this. I'm using this. I'm gonna start creating an array distribution to start having, because here I am creating the negative space. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negative spaces. So I need to create a revolution or circular distribution of this negative spaces. So the way to do this, very useful, the ray mesh, turning this on, very important, lock the position and reset the pivot point. This is I always take these steps without thinking. So turn this on and reset. So we need to rotate it. So with what axis? Maybe it's going to be in this one, on the Z axis. This value is degrees, so we want to create a rotation of 360 degrees, and repeating on 6, and we already have this. I have to be more than 300. I don't know. I know, depending on the scale. So if you say 300 on a scale of 10,000, is not going to be too much. I don't know. So okay, Leonard, let's see. You can do that. I work in Form C and will import OBJ. Yeah, to ZBrush and known scale. Just be aware that you may not be able to sculpt on the import. What do you mean with that? I don't know why you have to be aware of the sculpting on the important mesh, because by the topology, maybe, I think. I'm using let's see, if I turn off the Boolean, I'm using this. I'm using the subtool that I'm using for creating the negative spaces. So if I go to the subtools, you can see they are this little cylinder, extruded cylinder. So if I turn this on, I already have this. And if we start thinking about realistic things, so this should be, because one of the things that I like to, when I'm creating things that should be manufactured, so you should be keeping in mind during the designing process or the sculpting process that the things that you are doing is going to be able to be manufactured. In this case, this is not completely, it looks nice, but this is not, it still hasn't sense. But if I grab the stone should be here more or less. You are the stone, where I am. Okay. Okay, the stone was masked. Now I have to, should be here. So I making the piece here ready for the stone setter to just put the stone in place, just bend a little bit the prongs and remove an amount of material on the top to make them rounder. But you know what I mean. Maybe my yearly knowledge is not very wide, but as far as I know, the information that I have from the jewelers is that I should leave it like this, more or less, something like this. And we can make this. I am thinking about, yes, because I'm thinking about another. Yes, you were talking about the. Hola, Francisco. Gracias por estar aquí. Bienvenido. Yes, the topology. Yeah, but doesn't matter because at any time you can change the topology using the Dynamesh or ZBrush. It's necessary to change the topology, of course. But yeah, it's another way to do the same. So you can create the template or the mesh that you are going to use as a unit of measurement made from an external application or from an external solver, or you can do it with ZBrush without any problem with the scale master. So even inside of ZBrush, if I think you most of you are I think that you already know that you can measure the weight of the piece. So to know how weight is going to be in silver, gold, or any other metals. How to use series measure depending on the example. Depending on the example that you need, there are many ways. I'm gonna use the zero measure during the sculpting process. I hope will be helpful for you. So this is one thing that I have. So maybe what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna think I need to this cylinder. I'm gonna make it smaller like this. So if I grab the stone here, if I hide this should be, no, not the stone, it should be here. What we can do is to let's say the stone can rest there like this, and I'm going to need another cylinder. Let's duplicate this. The behavior of this one should be negative as well, and I'm gonna make it smaller and taller. So this is going to be the way to hold the stone, but I think I should move this a little bit high till he intersects on the stone, and there you go. If I turn the stone on, I'm gonna have this kind of bevel. When you are placing the stone, if you put the tube completely hollow inside, the stone will fall down because you're not going to be able to keep the stone in place. This is what so let's make it this a little bit smaller, because if we want to know how thick is this distance, maybe on the screen looks nice, but here we are talking about the distance of 0.2 millimeters reaching 0.3 millimeter. This is going to be very thin, very almost difficult for printing and difficult for casting. So will be better to make this a little bit thicker. At any point, the person who is going to set the stone inside, he is going to be able to remove material in the case it's necessary. So it's much better to leave more material than necessary than less, because at any time, once you have the piece design in metal on your hand, so you can remove the amount of material that you don't need, but you should have material to be able to remove anything. I'm gonna make this the prongs a little bit higher, like this, and this is going to be, so this is something like this. And maybe the good thing about the ray mesh is, like, we are only working with one mesh, so we are watching more than one, but it's just like a render. So if at any time, if I want to transform one, for example, I'm gonna grab just the half here. So you can see I can transform one, but it's going to happen the same to the rest. And this is going to be very useful. That's the reason why I select this way of working, the array mesh. And this is going to be very useful for the stone setting with different prongs, because at any point that you change one, you're going to change the others. So now should be here. Maybe the stone should be deeper. Yes. This should be here, more or less. And I'm going to create an extra. Let's save it first. I'm gonna. Okay. I'm going to insert now a cube. Let's grab a cube, key cube. Let's select this too with the symmetry to know that we are inserting the cube in the middle. Let's split mass points. Gonna make it something like this. Like this. How thick this cube is, you can take the measurement from point to point. We are creating, let's zoom in. This is a 0.9 millimeter, so it's gonna be able for printing and forecasting. But if you want to use the scale master, you can go to the scale master, and you are using you are creating a 0.93 millimeter thick cube. So let's repeat the same. Very useful thing about the array mesh that, for example, I already have this array mesh here already made or set. I can save it at any time. You're gonna save a CAM file. It's like a array mesh preset. So if I select this, click on array mesh and open load. So I'm gonna be able to do this. Just, it's not going to be necessary to repeat the step we took before. So if you save the array mesh settings on a file, so let's put it, let's remove the arrow, let's put it down, and let's create this. So I'm gonna creating this. So, but here this looks like it's going to be very thin. Maybe 6, it's too much. Another reason why it's very useful to use the array mesh, but at any time you can change from. And now you can, you want to know how thick is this, the same process as before. You can take the measurement from point to point. We are creating a 0.1 millimeter wall between each gap, so it's going to be enough. But here we have a problem here, because we are intersecting here as an arrow tip like this. So we know that from this point to this point is, we said before, 1 millimeter, if I remember well. But here we are having a very thin, very small part. Maybe we are going to have problems here, not here, but here in the side here. So the cubes should be, instead of cubes, should be tapering, something like this. We should transform the cubes to keep almost the same thickness here than here. So to keep in the same distance of one here and one here. So the good thing about using array mesh, we are only working on only one cube, but we can now with the gizmo, let's turn off the symmetry, send it to the center, resend the orientation, and we can get into the gizmo option and use the taper. So let's close the array mesh first. Taper. We can now come here, start tapering. But we are having, I think gizmo. Let's do it again. Taper. Now it's in the center. Yeah. I was making something wrong, but we should taper here at the end. But it's not going to be necessary to taper in this axis. You can control this, the visibility, with this cone. So we already have this. And now we are having more thickness. It's going to be necessary to increase the taper like this. maybe not that much, maybe a little bit less, like this. Okay, and now maybe it's going to be a good idea to make them wider. Not that much, like this. So we are start getting the stone, a nice stone setting, right? And let me take your question. So easy to make material away, hard to put it back. What do you mean with that? Your name is oil change. Easy to make material away, to take material away, to remove material, and hard to pull it back. I don't know, what do you mean? Do you mean with this when you are sculpting? Hi Aris, welcome. I'm using a Wacom Cintiq 22 inches. Wacom Cintiq. Okay, maybe the stone setting is not going to be necessary to make this so high. Maybe if we remove, this is one of the best things about the light booleans, because it is not a destructive process. At any time you are seeing the changes at real time. So, but we are not creating a real mess yet. You are just making renderings of the Boolean process. So, but like this, I'm thinking it's going to be enough. I think we can do one more thing. We can, for example, I can grab this part of the mesh and we can make it wider at the bottom to make the light a little bit bigger. Yeah, something like this. It looks a bit strange, but I think it's going to be enough. Like this. Okay, I think that's going to be enough. So another way now, the problem that we have is not a real problem, but you can see the faceting of the mesh. You can see we are working with a very low resolution meshes. So I recommend to you, when you are creating this, when you are working with booleans to correct this kind of hard surface stuff, instead of start subdividing the mesh, because we're going to start getting this, we're going to start destroying the edges. This should happen, as I said before, on the metal piece, but it's not going to be necessary to make that like this. Of course, if we want to make a render, maybe I'm going to need to smooth out a little bit the edges, but now I'm thinking about the 3D printing. So one of the best things is, if I'm gonna turn this on, I'm gonna group by normal. So I'm gonna have a different polygroup for each face. I'm gonna crease the polygroup. So it's like I'm gonna freeze or crease the borders between each polygroup, and now I can start working with dynamic subdivision. So I'm gonna turn this on. I'm gonna repeat the same with this. Let's make group by normals, crease polygroups, and dynamic subdivision. And I still have to make it here. So group by normal, crease polygroups, dynamic subdivision, and I think we are still have to make it here on this subtool. Group by normals, crease polygroups, dynamic subdivision. So now everything looks. Next thing that we can do is you can apply the beveling here at the bottom. I can grab the C modeler stay on the H, spacebar. Let's create the bubble. H loop complete. Oh, let's turn this off. Increase polygroups. So we have a bubble here, and maybe we can do almost the same here. But at the top it's not going to be okay. Something like this looks nicer. And we still have the sharp edges, but they looks much better. So let's save the ZBrush number 3. And this is going to be the master folder of the stone setting. What you can do now, but the bad thing about the ray mesh is that we are not creating real topology we are not working with a real mesh. For example, I'm gonna turn this off. If we go now to the folder options and we start thinking of creating the Boolean operation for all of the content of the folder, just clicking here. So this is what I have. Okay. I was wrong. I was thinking that the array mesh is not going to be taken into account on the Boolean operation, but it was 8. So we already have this. So now we can let's close the folder. Let's make everything visible. Let's send it to its original position. It should be here. Maybe here, taking like this. And now it's time to start. Let's select now the stone. Where is the stone? The stone is here, so I can select and clear the pipe point. Where is no? The stone is here. Okay. I'm gonna put the stone outside of the folder. Let's put it on outside. So I don't want to. The stone is going to be there. Of course, at the end on the real piece, the prongs, they are not going to be so high because they are going to be cut. And they are going to be a little bit bended on top of the stone. So we are just creating the necessary piece for 3D printing. If we, for the rendering purposes, I'm going to need to create a more realistic, closer to the original reference where the prongs are already bent on the surface of the stones and so on. But we are just creating like this, and now we gonna need to fix things here. Let's grab this branch that we have here. Maybe it's going to be necessary to, let's see what I do. Maybe let's push it back here. Maybe I'm going to keep this. Leave it like this. Maybe I'm going to transform these little balls that the designs already have there. I want to remove the latest. So let's auto groups. I inverse visibility and delete hidden. We only need 3. And maybe it's going to be necessary because if you can see, I think it's not going to be necessary, this portion. I'm gonna try to remove this thing. The way I do this is using the Sculpting Pro. You can, with the shift key, when you are smoothing things, but now you turn the Sculpting Pro, you can start smoothing things, but you can start destroying the unnecessary part of the mesh that you don't need. So like this, and that's it. At any point, You know, when you are creating the Sculpting Pro, you are creating new topology, but you can rebuild the topology with the series measure, and you have a brand new piece of mesh to work with. So let's put it here. Let's put it here. So this is going to be a welding point or a contact point. So let's put it more here. We're gonna have 3 welding points. 1, 2, 3. This is going to be a safe enough, I think. Maybe now the mouth is not. Let's put it some air like this. The same at the bottom. This is the good thing about having everything is split into parts, that at any time we can fix things or adjust things. So we already have this made. So let's save it. And let's see if I have more questions here. Yeah. Cool. I love that you are waiting questions, as I said before. Is 22 inches must, or can it get? Yeah, I think 15 inches is too small. Maybe your eyes, you're gonna hurt your eyes. So because you are gonna being working on a very small space. Even I'm feeling that 22 inches is not big enough. I'm start thinking on by the next one that it goes from 22 to 24 inches. Yeah, it is only 2 inches bigger, but I think it has 4K resolution, so I'm gonna have more resolution, more space on my interface. I think at the end I'm gonna be more comfortable working on a bigger space. So I think 50 inches is a bit small. Depends on how many hours are you working. For example, I'm working minimum from 6 to 8 hours all days, or mostly all days. It's not the same that you are using your tablet just for working 2 days on a week or 3 days. But 15 inches maybe is a bit small. It's a help. See, the minimum should be 22, because the 22 inches Wacom tablet, it's the old model. Now the new one has 24, but it's much more expensive. But if you are thinking about buying another brand, try to go minimum 22 inches, minimum for working. 50 inches is very small. Maybe 50 inches when you are buying a tablet that you can carry with you when you are traveling. Maybe it has more sense because it's not so big device. If we are talking about 22 inches, but we are talking about a workstation, place where you're gonna put a lot of hours working. So think about 22 inches as minimum screen size. Okay, so let's go for another thing. Maybe I'm gonna start working on this on the neck. Observing the original, looks like the neck hasn't too much detail, but we can try to create a kind of feathers texture. We can create a tileable mesh, and we can use the UV mapping process. Maybe it's going to be interesting for you. Thank you very much, Derable1. I'm glad you like it. So I'm gonna create a feather tileable texture. I'm gonna grab the cylinder, make polymesh. Okay, it's not going to be, no, okay, doesn't matter. Let's start from the scratch. So let's squeeze it a little bit. Let's rotate it. Let's make it like this. get into the gizmo options. Let's taper to make a kind of feather shape. So, okay. We can apply some polishing to make it more rounder. We can pull this in. Yeah. Like this. This is a good trick. When you try to pull this in with rotating here, you don't know, you can see, you don't know that you are making a straight movement. So you want to make a straight movement based from the camera angle. So that means you are moving things 90 degrees based on your eye position of your camera position. Using the move on the Alt key, keeping the Alt key pressed, you can pull it back or pull it to the front using this process. So let's divide it twice. Let's create a series measure because the topology looks a bit ugly. Okay, I'm gonna try to create a border. Not without the sculptures. This is going to be the feather, right? Maybe. Let's squeeze this. Just tuning in looks fine. Thank you, Kemi. Thank you very much. I work for a solo company but not as skilled as you are. You work for a silver company, and what kind of things you create? Maybe today the bad thing about the jewelry industry is the price of the things, the cost of the materials. Maybe that's the reason why it's very difficult to find interesting projects that makes very complex things, because all of the jewelry brands, that's my personal opinion, are always making so simple things, or so simple. Silver statues, okay, what size? The bigger statue, what's the scale? But if we are talking about the statues, should be big, I think. But if we are talking about silver, not too big. If we are talking about a jewelry company or making a statue for decoration or something. So the way that I used to create tileable texture, I already used this process on some of my previous streams. Going to the, you can find this plugin. This is an external plugin. You should download it and install it. It is called nanotile textures. So I prefer to change this value from 6 to 4 and create previews, simplest mode, everything. Okay, create new tile too. What ZBrush gives you is a kind of template. You can see 4 by 4 columns and 4 rows, and this is like a template to use as a nanomesh surface to create tileable texture. That's the reason why the plugin is called nanotile texture, because we are going to use nanomeshes. So let's zoom out to the using this. And now we should select the C modeler, spacebar. We want to insert a nanomesh on all polygons. What mesh do we want to insert? Just clicking, using the M from the keyboard, the feather I created before. So I'm gonna place one feather. Let's hide this. Let's grab this, put it here. So one feather for each cell or for each polygon. So now it's time to go to the nanomesh settings and let's change the rotation. This should be 90, I guess. 90, yeah. The Y is not the right axis. The X, yes. I should use minus 90. And now the offset, yeah, this one, you can see you can send it back or pull it to the front like this. And now it's time to play with the H tile Instead of one, let's click select two, or horizontal, I buy two vertical, and now change the pattern from the grid. It has now a grid organization, so we can change from grid for checked odd like this, and now we can start make it bigger like this. Let's make things wider. You can start playing, because like this looks like more like an scales instead of feathers, but let's make with the width, with the high. Ooh, no, undo. With the length, no, with the width. Yeah, should be more something like this, so we make it bigger. Yeah, I think they can work. Of course, maybe we can, at any time you can click on edit mesh, and you can change the mesh. You can see you can update the shape of the mesh. And I think this is something strange is happening. Maybe I did something wrong. Thing like this, it should work. And let's say with the width, maybe with the offset, no, not this offset. Maybe if I get into the mesh, if I make it longer, no. Maybe the feathers looks too short. Okay, let's leave them like this. So we can now go to alpha, transfer, and no, transfer, no, transfer and grab dock. So we are creating this repetitive pattern. Saves half an hour adding individually. Yes, but yeah, because if I have seen that though from the original design, they are not very important, the feathers here. It's just for play around with different techniques, but we can sculpt them one by one by hand. I'm gonna create another example on the wing to start sculpting the feathers one by one. It takes time, but then at the end looks more not so artificial, because it's not so repetitive. Sometimes, you know, when you're sculpting things digitally, you can add value to your design to make things manually, because they looks like they have made by hand without any the help of any digital help on the process. But it's up to you. It's just making this just to show it to you more techniques or different ways to do the same thing. These things are not in the core version. No, it's not in the core version. You need the full version to find this kind of things. Hola David, bienvenido. So once you have the tileable alpha, you can come back to the nanotile texture, and here at the bottom you can click this button, canvas, restore size. So now we can go to this is the original, right? We can, no, this is not this one. This one. Where are you? This one. Okay, this one. So we're gonna use the neck. I'm going to create the different polygroups for the UV mapping. So I'm gonna create a polygroup here. Control W. Another polygroup here with the lasso tool is easier. Control W, and I'm going to create another polygroup here. On the back like this. Control W. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 polygroups. So now we can start subdividing the mesh, having more resolution. 1, 2, 3 times. Now we are reaching 1 million. I think it's going to be enough. So next step to take for being able to apply the texture we created before, so start to grab the texture on the body, it's going to be necessary to create the UV coordinates. Use the UV master, work on clone, and grab, keeping the polygroups. Now ready, so flatten. So we have different islands, each based on the polygroup we were created before. So maybe the orientation is not good. Maybe we should change like this. So I'm flatten. So now the UVs are ready. So copy the UVs from the clone. And let's go to the original. Should be here. And paste the UVs. Let's change the material. This is one thing that I don't like. You need enough. Change the material anytime that you are using the UV master. So let's go now to the surface noise. The surface noise is going to be the way to apply to grab the image on the body. So let's get into the noise. As we already have UV coordinates, we can change from 3D to UV. Oh, I forgot to save. I forgot to save the. Where's the alpha here? I'm gonna need to export it first to be able to find it with the noise maker. Let's like this. See, grab one. Okay, so let's come back again. Noise, UV. You can click here on the bottom left corner. Where is it? I'm gonna open this. The texture I created before. So now that my way of working is I change from white to black for being able to see it clearly. I don't want to use this kind of basic noise, so set it up to 0. Well, now it's time to start changing. What I notice is the feathers are flipped. So the way to fix this, we should come back to the clone where we created the UV coordinates. So we should come back to the UV master, flatten again, and now we can rotate it 90 degrees. I'm sorry, 180 degrees. Yeah, that's more sense. So I'll flatten, copy the UVs again with the new orientation. Let's come back to the original and paste it. There you go. No, I don't use autosave. Autosave is set it up by default. I'm used to more to save by myself as more times as possible. Okay, to try to not lose any job. Stream yeah, thank you very much, man. I think that I'm not a real boss. Really, I think so. Okay, let's make the feathers a little bit bigger, because if not, they are going to look like more like scales or something. We can get into the edit, make it bigger like this. Maybe we are 0.39, let's say 0.38. Okay. And now the way that we can, this is just my advice that I can give you before I start making any deformation on the surface. It's a good habit to store the morph target. So store the mesh at this moment when it is completely flat with any kind of deformation. So I now convert the mask, the noise into a mask. Clicking here, mask by noise. And now we can, using the gizmo, you can use the gizmo and you can go to deformation, and using the inflate, you can start using positive or negative. But I prefer to use, because it's more, you have more freedom, I think. Let's undo this. Let's come out. So just clicking the control key and using the central yellow square. So let's make it like this. And before release the mask, I like to apply a bit of polishing. Invert the mask. bit of polishing. So there you go. So as we stored before making anything, clicking here on this morph target, we can now grab the morph brush and we can remove the feathers on the areas where we don't want to have them. So we can start removing the feathers from the back, for example. And also what we can do is start fading the transition between the feathers and the blank or the non-feathers areas, like this. This. But to being able to do this, you have to store the morph target before making any deformation of the mesh. So it's safe. I want to, for example, I don't want to keep feathers here. Let's see, we decrease the intensity to don't have them so marked here, to so defined here on the bottom. Yeah, making something like this. Let's, because here looks like it has kind of hair, or I don't know what it is, but it's a detail that I like from the original, so I'm gonna try to replicate it. So let's fade this. And that's it. Hey Marco, glad you like it. So I'm gonna now grab this brush, the S/2 brush. You will find this brush here. Go into the light box, go into the brush section. You have a folder completely loaded with the slash brushes. You need to get into here. You will find it here, the /2. You are not going to be able to find it here on the default brushes. So this brush is great for sculpting feathers. The bad thing about it, it's not a bad thing, but the intensity is too high, because you can see it almost destroys or create a lot of artifacts on the surfaces. It's necessary to use it with caution. So let's reduce the intensity. And I'm gonna start, instead of having the effect with one stroke, I prefer to start making different strokes. Let's remove more feather here. So repeating the strokes, I prefer. Auto saving, okay. This brush is great for sculpting feathers or for sculpting hair. So you can add here and there, and you can, for example, you can start sculpting now, applying some randomness to the feathers we created before with a repetitive way. For example, doing this, just to try to avoid that they looks like so artificial or repetitive. So now we are adding the handmade touch, like this, adding some imperfections. And this brush is great for feathers because you are creating a kind of a step when you are sculpting. You can see the alpha you are using. So now what we can do is, for example, we can do here. Oops, we can create something like this. Like this. Another feather here. Or another. And that's it. I'm going to use now the H polish to start polishing the feathers, to start continue adding the manual touches. And I don't know the name of this. If we are, let's see. I'm thinking about the name, but I don't know to say it in English. Let's say parts. It has a name. Shaft. Oh yeah, it has a name. It has. You can see here. This is I'm talking about this part in the middle. It looks like the name is Rachis or Rachis. Rachis is Rachis, this part of the feather, and maybe it's the clue to recognize a feather instead of a scale. I think just to create this kind of volume here in the middle of the feather to complete the detail of the feathers. But no, I don't have a curve. I have planned to make a curve on a with vertex, with the vertex school. I will make it public when will be available in the future, but at the moment not. Kimi, if I would like to name them one of the most important brushes in ZBrush, well, it's going to be very difficult to just to say one, but the move brush is one of the most important brushes that you should use. The others maybe is just a matter of personal preferences, but the move brush is going to be a brush that everyone uses for pulling or pushing the mask, adjusting forms, creating shapes. The others, some people prefer to sculpt with the standard, other people prefer to use the clay build-up or the clay brush. I think, in my opinion, the others relays more on personal preferences instead of one is best than the other. But the move brush is maybe it's going to be will be at the top of the list of all of the ZBrush users, I think so. So the way to create the rages, so I'm gonna, I already have the morph target stored before, but I'm gonna go to morph target. I'm gonna delete that information, and I'm gonna store a new morph target from this point. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this brush, form shaft. Let's make it a kind of cavity in the middle of each feather, one by one. We're not looking for a highly detailed surface, just add a small touch or extra detail, but not with a very high definition. So like this, like this. So once we have made this, let's put this in a little bit more, so we can use again the morph brush, and we can start creating the stem in the middle. Now with more intensity. Now let's increase the intensity, let's make it smaller, and let's create like this, like this. I'm gonna use the lazy mouse. Okay, much better now. My keyboard. No, yeah. Now it works. So let's create, for example, one more here, one more there. And now let's smooth a little bit the ending of each one. Because we are not looking for highly detailed feathers, but it's going to be enough to see. Because when we are creating jewelry, when we are designing jewelry, the end of the product is going to be manufactured with shiny material, or most of them are going to be casted or finished with shiny material. So it's much better to think about the reflections of the light instead of the normal volumes that we are creating when we are creating regular statues or figures that can be cast on resin or other materials. So if we are just have this kind of little volume in the middle, so the light will cast the necessary reflection to know that we have there in front of us feathers instead of another thing. So to recognize the texture that we have. So we can start. So this could be an endless process to start refining, detailing, refining, detailing, but I don't like to create too many detail. I think like this is going to be enough. What we can do is to, for example, we can break some of them using the dam standard. This is very famous brush as well. So we can start creating this kind of things to even create more feathers, recognizable feathers texture. It's not going to be necessary to, and that's it, I think. Let's save it. You hate the lazy mouse. It takes away. Yeah, really? Why do you hate it? It takes away precision. It makes completely the opposite thing. It gives you much more precision than without it. I think the advice that I can give you is the lacy radius is going to be very important, because if you are looking for a very long stroke, that means that you are going to need a long lacy radius value. But you are start creating small strokes, creating a texture or something, or the distance that you're going to take from one point to the farthest point is not going to be too long. Always adjust the lacy radius to a less value, because if not, the stroke is going to be very so low that can give you the feeling that you are not sculpting well. But this is going to be very useful for many different things. For many different things. I'm gonna work on this feather now. Let's see how the topology looks like. Okay, looks good enough. It's not going to be necessary to mesh it. So we can start subdividing 1, 2, 3 times. So what I do is when I start subdividing the mesh, I am keeping an eye here on the active points. When I am reaching 1 million, I stop. When I am now reaching almost 1.5 million. So I have 1,400,000 polygons. So more than 1 million, but it's time to checking that if we have enough resolution, if you have enough resolution for the kind of detail that you want to sculpt, stay there. So it's not going to be necessary to click again to have more than 5 million. In my opinion, hasn't sense. So let's stay always try to stay around 1 million and 1.5 million. So I'm gonna use the same. So I'm gonna start sculpting the feathers. The tricky thing about this brush is that you are creating the strokes from, in this case, from left to right. In this, using this arc, is not going to work because you can see we are keeping the feathers on the with a negative volume. So it's going to be necessary to create the stroke now from left to right, or you can change the, no, in this case doesn't matter. So you can change your orientation. So it's going to be okay. And thing, don't forget to store the morph target first to start sculpting any feathers, because when you're sculpting feathers, it's going to be very difficult to adjust the end of the stroke, but you already have the morph target, so you can use the morph brush and you can start removing without the lazy mouse. Now the lazy mouse is not going to be necessary to start removing the unwanted parts of the mesh, but now it's not going to be necessary to be very precise. We are just creating loose strokes on the surface to have this kind of handmade feather look like this. In this case, it's going to be useful to apply the lazy mouse without the radius of less than 20, because we're going to have more control on the strokes. Maybe instead of 15, 13, let's see, without more intensity. This case is going to be useful to have the lazy mouse active. In my opinion, but let's turn this off. Maybe. So this could be the way to sculpt feathers by hand. They don't look so perfect than the others, but if you are looking for a more random texture, you are looking for more handmade texture, this should works. Another tip that I can give you is when we are creating things for 3D printing, maybe we are watching things good on the screen, but we are gonna lose a lot of detail on the printing process and on the casting process. So it's going to be a good idea to add more strength to our strokes to be sure that we're gonna keep the details on the final piece. So if you can see here, you can start thinking, it don't look very well defined. So of course you can start again with more strength, or what you can do, you can come back on history till the beginning of the first stroke. You are here, control and tap on this point. You can see a little red frame will appear on this point. You can come back to the end, and now you can go to the stroke. Let's grab the stroke menu, and you can start adjusting the last to add more strength if necessary. So now we have much better defined feathers than before. So let's refine them. This is a very good way to add more strength to the strokes that you made. Coming back from history, I'm coming back again to the latest point and using the just last. Your work is Shirky Boyo, thank you very much. How long have I been doing this? I have been using ZBrush for 16 years till now. I'm doing using ZBrush as a professional. I think it was from 2015, so 7 years. My main clients are, I have many clients all around the world, from brands, jewelry brands, for private commissions, private workshops, or small brands. Most of them are for custom. I work for custom pieces, not for catalog pieces. But you can find a lot of clients, I think. We can, now in this case, the lazy mouse is going to be very important, because you can see how precise I am when I start rotating my wrist, because in this case the lazy mouse gives to me much more precision. So in this case, ZBrush is completely necessary to create this kind of strokes. And of course, I feel that you are even more precise if you are using a Cintiq instead of a regular tablet. Like this. We can adjust here a little bit. No, I don't have any 3D printer. I don't want to have any, because it consumes a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of work, a lot of money, and you need a special place at your home. So it takes a lot of problems. I send all the model for, I outsource the 3D printing. I have some friends, many friends, and I have a printer, and I'm always worried about asking to my clients that the printed came out well. If they had any problems on the printing regarding to the details or to the size, to try to learn what I did wrong for my next job. And it's a matter of learning from your mistakes. But 3D printing, it's a huge world, so you need to know many different things too. The way to control the printers, yeah, it's tricky. Okay, let's go to another section. What time is it? Okay, we still have 30 minutes. Let's work on the main feathers like this. So I'm gonna save this as another file from this point. I'm gonna, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new, only one mesh composed by the feather groups from this, all of the feathers, and the back plate, or the back part of the wing. So what we can do is, let's select the feathers. They still need more resolution, because with you can see here the facets. So let's go to divide twice. You can see it's not necessary to reach 1 million, so like this is going to be enough. I'm gonna try to close some holes here. Move topology, back face mask active to start closing some holes here. It's a very good way to detect holes, is this technique. You can go to render, turn on the flat option, And you can see here, because when you are using the default, any matcap that you are using with the reflections, the light, the shadows, the colors, sometimes it's going to be quite difficult to detect some holes or some windows or whatever you can call it. But if you go to render and you use the flat mode, you can start detecting the holes where they are. There you go. Here you have one. Here you have another one. Here, this is a very tiny one. Let's see. Let's move it around a little bit more to see if there's any here. No. Okay, looks like the mesh is it's good now. We can come back to from flat to preview. And now I can now select this. Let's divide this 2 times. But it's not going to be necessary to have so many polygons on this piece, so let's stay here. So now let's merge them down, merge down, always, yes. You don't have a printer either. Yeah, but I use a virtual printer, so I know if all of the slicing and stuff work properly before sending. Yeah, maybe it could be a work that you can take aware of, but in my opinion, it's much in charge of the people who is going to print the file. But of course, it's good if you are checking your. But I only make is with the netfab, with the basic version or with the free version of netfab. I just check in the mesh that everything is fine in terms of the mesh continuity, and that's it. And I send it the STL to the client. And today, most of the printers are able to fix the main problems, as far as I know. So it's not like some years ago that you had to be more worried about the morphology of the mesh, on the polygons, the vertex, the sides, and today it's I think you can have more success in the printings than some years ago. So you don't have to be so worried today about the meshes than before. Kemi, you guessed that jewelry needs of less. Yes, because the printers that on the jewelry industry are different, a bit different than the printers. Or of course, you can use the printers that you are using for create miniatures and things like that. But when I need to print a model, I send it to a friend of mine who has a wax printer, who is not that is not making supports. It uses two materials, the support material and the construction or the building material. So at the end of the process, you can the support material, you can melt it with a special liquid, so it's not going to be necessary to remove any supports on the surface, and has much higher resolution than the other existing resin printers. The figures, they need to be set up properly. Yeah, but depending on what you consider to set them up properly, because you should be worried about the mesh continuity. It should be watertight, without any holes, with any open edges, and that's it. So I think it's not necessary to use the slicing process, the slicing software, to check the mesh. I think it's my opinion, because the printer companies or the people who are using the printers, each person has its own way to place the models on the building plate. So it's not the same when you put it all horizontal or a little bit turn it to the left or turn it to the right. So they have the necessary experience. So maybe it's not your work. It's my opinion. Any tutorials or books to suggest you about what? about ZBrush, general knowledge, or I think today we are lucky that we have a huge compilation of tutorials and things just searching on Google. So many people are teaching things, showing things, YouTube, Twitch. About jewelry sculpting is going to be hard to find. I'm still looking for them, so I don't know. I don't. Okay, Kano Coffee, Kona Coffee. Thanks for being here. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So let's see. Let's go for once I have this. There are still individual meshes. What I do is I go directly to Dynamesh. I'm gonna fix this first to be sure that everything is working well before go to the Dynamesh. Like this. Let's fix this. This. Okay, looks like we can fix some things before going to the Dynamesh. Oops, let's like this. So what I do is going to the zip plugin. This is another external plugin that you should find on the resources page from the Pixologic official website. It is called Dynamesh Utility. When I decide how many polygons I need for my new Dynamesh. So as I said before, 1.5 million polygons, you can see is the default value. I think is going to be enough for sculpting and for highly detailed surfaces, my opinion. But if I go instead of 1.5 to 2, what I prefer to set this to 0 because I don't want to apply any blurring on the surface. Here hidden we have a little tiny button. You can see here the orange color. It's much better to turn this off as well, to don't apply any smoothing or any blurring on the surface. And now it's time to click on this button to create our new Dynamesh, where we have a completely watertight mesh as a one single surface. You can see now the details remains the same, but now it's time for start blending. For example, this gap that we have here between this feather and this the body of the wing. Now it's time to start using smoothing peaks and smooth valleys. Now I'm going to use smooth valleys because I don't want to remove the edge. I just want to start blending this part. So in this case, it's going to be very useful, smooth valley. So I'm going to start blending things together. We're keeping the details in place. So because we are not removing, or we are not touching, or we are not destroying any of the. Here we have a little problem here. We have a little gap here, so we can move backface max face, so we can pull this in. Control drag to create a new mesh. Let's create this. Now the gap is closed, no problem. Control drag. So now you can start, for example, you can start blending things together. You can see you can fix the seams between the individual meshes we were creating before with this brush, with the smooth valley brush. Smooth valleys, not the default smooth brush. Like this. The others can remain the same. We can apply some polishing. overall polishing. We can now, with the move and the back face, we can make this. And this is the way that I like to use Dynamesh, is because when I am stretching the mesh, I am stretching the mesh. So at any time you can create a new mesh and everything is ready for follow sculpting. That's the main reason that I use most of the times. I use Dynamesh instead of a regular series measure process. Here, maybe here we have a tiny pocket here. No. Okay. So now we can, for example, let's close this gap here. I don't like this line that we have here, but maybe with the move and the back face again. I can do this, rebuild the mesh, let's move this. And now this is going to be, very useful to use the lazy mouse again. As I said before, when you need to create long strokes, you need to take a long journey from one point to another point. It's going to be very useful, the lazy radius. So if not, you're not going to be able to be so precise. Yeah, Wacom 22. It's I'm using Wacom Synctic. Yeah, it's very good. About the good thing about the Wacom 22 inches, this is the old model. It's that it comes with the stand, with the support, so you don't need to pay any extra support to hold the Wacom in place. Even you can change the different angles. You can put it in vertical, horizontal, or you can put it 45 degrees with so the stand is integrated on the tablet. Madre mía. So we can follow strange bots are coming. Strange bots. Oh my god. What are you doing? No, we are having an attack of bots on Tinder. Okay, I don't know why that happens, but okay, don't pay attention. Okay, let's follow closing holes. And this is what I have. Now I can start filling these gaps and start using the H polish to start refining the back. So what you can do now, it's, for example, when you are creating jewelry, for example, when you are creating a piece of material, or of a block of material that I already have here for the wing, and you are worried about the weight because maybe you are making it too thick, and it's not necessary to be so thick, because as more metal you save, more money you will save, and also it's going to be more comfortable to wear. Yeah. So what you can do is, well, what I do is, because in ZBrush, the bad thing about ZBrush, maybe it's not going to be possible to measure thicknesses. Yeah, there are some ways. I have seen some. For example, you can do this. You can select the lasso. Let's grab it in the middle. Let's double, here you are. So now here we can start taking measurements. So but we are measuring an average on the surface. We are not having a precise distance, but it's going to be enough. So what you can do is do this. Now I have a thickness of 1.9 millimeter. Looks like this could be the thickest point, 2.1. Come here, one, yeah, I got you. So here, from here to here, we have 2 millimeters. From here to here, we have 2.5 millimeters. This is going to be the thickest point. If we invert the visibility, here we have 2.4 millimeter thick. Yeah, this is going to be 1.7, 1.8, 1.2 millimeter. So that means that we can make it thinner, or we can save a bit of metal. Maybe we can try to make it 1 millimeter thickness all over the surface. It's not going to be possible to adjust it with a completely 100% precise, but because you are following an irregular surface, it's not possible to extrude the surface with a precise value. What I do is to start saving things. What you can do is I'm gonna create a mask here. I'm gonna backface. I'm gonna create here a mask in the middle. I'm gonna create a cavity in the center to try to save some material, some weight. This, maybe not so close to the border, like this, for example. And what you can do now, you can blur the mask, blur, invert the mask, and now you can grab the gizmo, Alt, and tap here, and you can start push in the surface. But with this, you don't know. For example, you have an offset. This is one, and this is another one here. You are pushing the surface with the same amount like I am doing. Maybe here we are reaching a dangerous measurement here because we're making it too thin, and here it still will be too thick. So it's not going to be possible to just push it back and have a good result. Maybe we can have problems on the printing and mostly on the casting. But what you can do, as I said before, it's not a precise way of doing this, but what you can do is go into display properties and flip the mesh. Let's turn on the Boolean, turn on the double and flip the mesh. And now we're watching the mesh from the inside. So we can now move like this, flip the mesh without the double, and now we can be able to see when we are pulling the mesh, we are watching the mesh from the inside. So we know that maybe we should push more here when we have more thickness here, like here in the center, that it's thinner, and here we should push this in a little bit more, and keeping an eye that we are not very close to the external wall, like this. And with this, we are saving. Maybe here we are too close to the border, so it's not going to be necessary. Maybe we can save more here. We can pull this in. I never know when to use pull and push. So Let's polish by feature to relax the mesh. And something like this. Maybe we can make it, we can pull down, or push down like this. And that's it. Maybe it's going to be enough. And with this, I think we have saved a bit of material. Let's refine. Let's apply some polishing. Now we can flip again, and now we have the amount of material that we can save. Of course, maybe it looks a bit ugly. No, we have a problem here. Let's come back. Because we have a problem here in the middle. Here you can see here where the problem is. Here is too close. With this process, you are able to see from the inside. Okay, like this. Flip, and there you go. We can polish this a little bit. And now we have saved some of material there. And now it's time to make things not so ugly, because like this, don't look very well. So try to fix things to make, for example, this border close like this, because we tried to have a balance between the logical things and the beautiful finishings. This is a part that I like when I'm creating designing, or when I'm creating jewelry, because it's a balance between how beautiful the piece is and how weight it is, and how cheap it is to manufacture, or for printing, or for molding. You have to take many different things into account during the sculpting and the designing process. Even more if you are creating gold pieces. If you are using silver, it is not so important, but like this. And now we know that we have saved a bit of material, but the design remains the same. Mostly from view, of course. This is going to be the most important thing. Okay, 5 minutes to finish. Maybe I can try to remove this edge, polish. I like to use these brushes like a sanding tool, or sanding paper, or you need to use it with the Alt key, in combination with the Alt key. It's the feeling that you have that you are sanding the surface with a file, with a sanding paper. Okay. Push when you are putting something inward or forward. Yeah, it's I always think about a door. When you are coming to a building, you read the the message pull or push when you are trying to pull or push. Yeah, it can be done in more ways, but I think it has something that you are putting yours. Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's my brain's not with that works doesn't works well, but I know I know when to use them, but I have the feeling that I always using the opposite. When I'm using pull or push, I'm always thinking about the door of the building. When you try to open the door, and you always pull or you always make the opposite. The message say pull and you push. Yeah, oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, we can check the reflection, for example. Let's save it. We can use one of the material that I use. I think this material comes by default. This one, gold. Okay, I have the neck has color. If I turn this on, you can use this to see how the light reacts. But you know that it's much better to use the bottom part of the material. That means that the standard material reacts to the light. I like to use this one, RGB levels with white. I'm sorry, with yellow, like this. And now you're gonna start playing with the light. You can see here how the surface reacts to the light, so you can have more information. Also, if you, for example, go to the render, let's go to render and go to preview ambient occlusion. So you're gonna be able to colorize the recessed areas, so you will have this kind of effect. So you're gonna have the quality. Maybe you can play with intensity, quality, the radius. Let's put it more yellow like this. And also you go to the material settings. I prefer to play with this material, modifiers. You have two different channels, the channel 1 and the channel 2. You can play with the ambient occlusion. You can play with this peculiarity to make it more or less brighter. Also, you can play with the curve. More things. You can diffuse, not that much, to still seeing how the light reacts on the surface. Okay, it looks like more than plastic, but it's a good information to know, to see how the light reacts on the surface is good enough, I think. Because inside of ZBrush, you don't have a very realistic. I already have this one, for example. I downloaded from the internet. This one looks a little bit more realistic, and also this one. Maybe this one looks very close to the original. If I turn off the ambient occlusion, yeah, it looks nice with the ambient occlusion, because we have a nice black color on the cavities, maybe with less intensity, like this. I have found this one. Maybe the name of the material is Sepsessure. You can see them here. Sepsessure. Or I don't know. Maybe you're gonna be able to find that on the net. Yes, you are left-handed. You always do the reverse of everyone. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But I think it's the same that is happening on my brain when I'm talking about pull up push. Why don't you make the feathers on both sides? Because this is going to be, I didn't make the feathers on both sides because this is going to be a brooch. So you're gonna wear the brooch. So it doesn't matter what is on the back. So I'm gonna show you some images of some brooches I've found. Let's open this. You can see this brooch is, it is a very nice design. You can see how it is from the front, but you can't turn it to see the back side. This is how it looks like on the back. So always when we are creating jewelry, most of the times we are just worried about the visible part of the design, because on the back we're going to be able to save, remove material to make a lighter piece and a cheaper piece to don't. So that's the reason we are not creating a sculpture. We are creating a piece that has to be wear, in this case on a jacket or on a skirt. So that's the reason why it hasn't any detail on the back. As you can see here, the same thing here. The front and the back. Here on the back there are some feathers. Of course, what I can do is, instead of leave it completely flat, maybe we can add more value to the design to start adding a bit of feather texture that like I did here on this wing, to don't leave it completely flat without any detail. But the main reason is that's the reason why everything is completely flat on the back. Let's come back to the original without the ambient occlusion. And Bat King has some great free material too. Yeah, Bat King, yeah. Bat King is a great place. You want to, this is this brush, hems and diamond cuts. It's from Bat King website. Thank you, Leonard. Oh, okay, I understand. It's a bit of, yeah, that's the reason why. Maybe the same thing about the rings. Yeah, many people are creating, sculpting things from the inside of the ring. Maybe it adds value to the design, but yeah, it's not very common. For example, when you're creating a pendant, when you're wearing a pendant, doesn't matter what happens on the back, or you can add some details on the back, but they are not going to be so important than the detail that should be on the front. But okay, you can do it. But here the best thing is try to find the balance between weight and design. So it looks beautiful from the front, of course, and from the back you can add a bit of design on the back. But the most important thing is going to be how easy it's going to be able to be manufactured, instead for printing, casting, and finishing, and how heavy in terms of price it's going to be. So depending on the kind of metal that you are going to use, of course. So we can. Okay, so it's time to finish today. So I'm gonna try to think about something new for the next stream. It's going to happen the next Wednesday 11th. I'm gonna give you my links for all of my social media websites. You already have here at the bottom of my camera. You can have there my Linktree/Nacho Riesco. You will find me there. Anyway, I will copy and paste the same link on the chat. So we'll guide you here, where you can go to my website, to my ArtStation profile, to my YouTube channel, to my Instagram profile, to my Facebook page about organic jewelry design, to my general Facebook page, to my Behance profile, DeviantArt, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Patreon. So there you go. I will paste it here. You can reach me through many different sites. Will be glad to help you in case you need any help from me. And just say thank you to all of you for being here watching the stream, and thank you to all of the people who are going to watch to see the stream after. And I'll be here next week, so I hope you found that interesting what I made today. And next day, I'm not sure, maybe if I have time to start something new, or I would like to finish this, because the feathers still needs to be worked a lot to start adding, like I did here with another feathers, to start creating the hairs or the texture of the feathers, to try to give them more realistic finishing, and try to complete all of these ornaments here. They need a lot of work as well, not too much, but they need to be refined and define some forms, and we can do this next Wednesday. So thank you very much. Have a good evening, rest of the week, the weekend, till next week. I hope you will be able to be here as you did today. Thank you very much. See you next Wednesday. Bye.